All right guys, we're back at it another day. For the first time ever, we got one machine, two machines going at the same time. This is dirt work, like level 10. We got to move all this dirt around, get everything filled in. I'm gonna run some string lines, make sure our boxes are square, get that all set up so that we can backfill those and get those buried. We have all of our plumbing stuff done up here. Well, not done, but at least the pipes to the wall. Once this is all level, I'm gonna mark out the plumbing. And Brian Sturman said he's gonna draw me a diagram on how to do it. Well, it's all buried, we have to dig it up again, but there's plumbing under this wall here that's gonna go out either to the house or to the road, depending on how we end up doing that. But this is coming together. You can see it's filled in pretty well. That was all in the dark last night, so I didn't do much filming then. We're gonna get this all graded and leveled out pretty well on that side, and then hopefully get this compacted. He was just telling me like I should just run the hose all night within here and just let the water do its job of helping settle the dirt, since this is all disturbed soil at this point. All right, tonight's the night that we are making the wet set brackets. There's a couple companies that make them, and that's where I got the ideas from. I think Midwest Permacolumn, and I was looking into buying those, and they're $150 per bracket, and we need 14 brackets. So you do the math on that, it's a couple $1,000s, right? So I thought to myself, I don't know how to build a building, right? I'm not a wood guy. I don't know how to do concrete, any of this stuff. One thing I know how to do is cut and weld. I've been doing that for years. So I was like, I can make these brackets. I can make them for less money. I can make them stronger. I'll overbuild them. And I'm actually integrating two designs of bracket into one to make it double strong. So anyways, overbuilding them, we actually found the specs on the Midwest Permacolumn. And so there's this whole sheet that talks about all the materials, blah, blah, blah. At first I bought 3/16, and then it shows here to use number 4 rebar and 1/4 inch thick plate. So I bought 3/16, then I saw that it was 1/4 inch thick plate, so then we had to go return it. That took me 2 days because they gave me the wrong material, back and forth to Ogden, all that stuff. And then I went to have them laser cut, so we didn't have to use the saw. Long story short, those guys were too busy to cut them for us, so now we're using the saw to cut them, which these are actually gonna be buried 6 inches in concrete, so we're gonna put them at grade level, and then the concrete pad is gonna be poured above grade. So 6 inches of these will be below concrete. So they'll be set into a pillar, then the floor will be poured over them. So the bottoms and the sides and the lower bolts will all be covered in concrete. So I was really worried about having a nice looking finish on the bottom, and then I realized they're gonna be buried anyways. We'll never see them. So then I was like, let's just do it. They're still nice cuts, it's still good, but it's taken us a long time, and I'm saving another $100. I think all in all, this material was about $300 for the 1/4 inch plate for 60 feet of it. And then the rebar is just stuff that we had left over from doing the foundation. So we found all the scraps that were left over, and then cut them to length and all that stuff. And so that's how we're building these. And I think it should be sufficiently engineered and over-engineered, if anything. So this is the basic design. It's got 4 pieces of rebar going down. They're welded to the bottom of a bracket. These are bent L brackets. So instead of bending it, I decided to weld them because there's another style. Where's the other style? Jesse, where's the other style? I'm gonna look like an idiot if they don't show up. Oh, there it is. There's the page before. This is the other style. These bolt to the pad, right? So these are uprights with a flat piece, and then they're welded instead of bent, and then it has a bolt that goes into the concrete. So what I did is I integrated this design and that design into one. And so we're gonna weld rebar and add a flange with a hole that we can bolt to the concrete after it sets. So that should be good. That's the idea. Hopefully it works out. It has all the dimensions and measurements. We went about 1 inch or 2 over in every possible dimension, and I really think that's gonna work out. So we're gonna show you the process of building them. It's gonna be a late night. Let's get to it. We have all this leftover rebar from what we were doing with the foundation, and so I'm getting these all separated to lengths and stuff. We're gonna use 4 of these on each wet set bracket, maybe more, maybe 4 long ones and then a few short ones to make them strong. We bought this plate the other day. I found out that, am I talking really loud?
Yeah, really loud.
I should start over?
Probably.
I have the headphones in, so this is just how loud I have to talk to hear myself. All right guys, tonight's the night we're making the wet set brackets. I'm still talking loud. It's exciting. People watch the video if I talk loud. What?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. It's exciting when you talk loud.
Okay. So we need 56 of these total, and we're going to use different lengths. We're going to spread them out evenly, and then they will get welded to the bottom of these plates. Got to break out the old drill press. We don't use this thing very often, but when you need it, it's good. Something about drilling with a drill press, well, any drilling with a drill bit, is you want low speed and high pressure, which is why a drill press is good, because you can put way more pressure with this than you can standing over a drill bit, or a hand drill. High pressure gets a good curly fuse. I try and run the bit as hard as I can before it stalls. Starting to squeak a little bit, like maybe the drill bit's getting dull, but I think it'll work for this whole project. I've got 2 sets of drill bits. I have these Irwin bits I bought from Cornwell Truck, and the Cornwell dealer will actually warranty anything over 1/4 inch if it breaks. So when these start to get dull, I warranty them on the tool truck. Same with the snap-on. I've got some snap-on bits, and I do the same thing with those. I get them warranted whenever they get dull. So we'll push the thing to the limit, and then I'll warranty it next week. So I started the long process of welding these all together. We got everything cut and prepped. Jesse got them all drilled. We got them lined up. So this part is just a bunch of welding, manufacturing, just over and over and over. Which is why I dressed like this today. It's like 75 degrees outside. I'm sweating, but when you're doing this much welding, you got to cover up your arms and your legs so you don't get sunburned. Same with my head. Sometimes the top of my head will get burned because I don't have any hair up there. So I put a hat on. It's just hot. This is kind of tedious. I like welding. I enjoy it, but like, this is work for sure. This is fun welding. There's a difference between fun welding and work welding, and this is work welding for sure. But what I've been doing is I'll weld like the corners on each of them, and then flip it, do the corners again. That way the plates don't get too warped. And so basically I'm doing like flipping, welding, flipping, welding, flipping, welding. It's a lot of different processes to make it happen. But we got a pretty good stack going outside. I think I'm about halfway done. I've got 7. This is the 8th one done. So if I were to have a fab company only, I would call it floor fab, because I literally do everything on the floor. I've got a bench here, I've got a bench up there, but I'm working on the floor. That's how I always do. Like, and actually, since we're building this shop, I remember someone telling me at one point, like, your floor is your most valuable tool, which for me is 100% the case, right? The flatter it is, the smoother it is, because that's where I do most of my work. Like, this is on the floor. I just think it's kind of funny. Like, sometimes people are like, hey, why don't you use the bench? I'm like, I'm just more comfortable on the floor. But now that I'm getting older, my back starts to hurt when I'm a long time down like this, but it's still my preferred method of doing stuff, working. Pattern all laid out for spacing, and then I literally just take them by hand, tuck it, make sure they're pretty well lined up, and you weld them on. These things are strong. Not going anywhere. If I ever need a job, I'll go hit up Midwest Permacolumn, see if they'll hire me. I'll make them stronger and better than what they got. That's it. That's the process for making one. Oh, I like this. The welder keeps randomly shutting off. There we go. That's good for it. Yeah, the way this is going to work, the pier in the ground, we're going to put concrete in it while it's still wet and setting up. You basically get this, you put it in there, you kind of, and then it's going to sit on this plate, so that'll float on the concrete there. And Jesse was just asking me like, well, what if it sinks? And so, I mean, obviously the surface area here should have some surface tension on the concrete. It's not water. But if it sinks a little bit, we're gonna set the laser on the bottom here, and we gotta get all 14 of them at the same height with a laser level. So that may involve either pushing them down a little bit or raising them back up and getting them to sit flush. And then you see our 3 bolts. Those are gonna be 1/2 inch through bolts. And then the corner ones actually have 2 of these brackets within a 1'10" of each other. So I'm actually gonna do 1 strip of metal and then build that 1 bracket with two column supports in it, 24 inches long. So far that's what we got. I'm just gonna keep replicating. These will start looking better and better. It took me a while to get the welder dialed in, but I've got the settings now just right. And yeah, it's gonna be a late night, all-nighter. The reason I chose these colors is because that's what we have laying around. And they're gonna be buried in 6 inches of concrete, so I'm not super worried about the bottom. I just want corrosion prevention, which we don't really have a problem that much in Utah because it's a really dry climate. A lot of Midwest climates and wet climates like Florida and stuff, if you bury your posts, they're gonna rot, but Utah doesn't have that much of a problem. But even so, I still wanted them not completely buried. That way it's serviceable in the future. If I really had to change this post, I could chip out the concrete around it, unbolt it, jack the roof up with some sort of a support, slide the post out, put another one in, and it wouldn't be easy, but it would be possible. Now, if you have one buried, what are you gonna do? Cut it off and then what? I guess you could build a bracket over that one, but I think this is a better option. I like welding stuff when it's hot because then the paint kind of bakes to it. It self-dries. You don't get a beautiful finish that way, but I'm not going for a beautiful finish on this.
You weld it when it's hot?
Is that what I said?
Yeah.
Oh, spray it. Spray it right after welding. Paint it hot. It's kind of like a poor man's powder coat because it really cooks on there really well. And as you can see, I'm not going for any sort of spray pattern. I'm just going really thick because that's the part that's gonna be touching the ground.
Hey, what are you doing? What are you doing?
So the beams, we took it back to my house and checked it on the beams. I measured 6 1/8, and it's actually 6 7/8. So the beams don't fit between here, the wood beams. So literally, how many did we do? 8 of them already, and 8. So now we have to cut and move them a 1/2 inch and re-weld them. But instead of keeping, I give up on trying to be perfect. So we're just gonna move one over so I don't have to cut both sides, and then re-weld them back together. And then the other ones, the rest of them that I didn't weld yet will be perfect. The only silver lining here is that we didn't finish them all before we checked it. But it's not like I didn't, whatever. I thought twice about it. That's what's embarrassing is I thought twice about it. I'm like, no, that measurement's right. But should have double checked. I just can't bring an 18-foot post to the shop to check it on these. And I wasn't gonna build one, drive home and check it. I should have, but I didn't. So that's where we're at. I'm cutting all these apart. Awesome, great time. They're supposed to be done tonight. I'm supposed to be welding more of them, but here I am redoing. Enough jibber jabber, getting back to it. Fun.
Go ahead.
Jesse?
Go ahead.
Jesse. Can't see, I welded without my mask. All right, finally, the last of the ones we had to cut apart. It's actually working pretty well. It's not pretty, but they'll be strong. This is literally the last weld, and then we're done with this. We've got everything scheduled for Jesus to come tomorrow, dig the holes, set them, concrete, these, boom, and then the foundation stuff is done. Once these are set, we can set vertical posts, we can frame the walls, we can get all that going. I found another company to do the trusses. Why am I talking about all this stuff? I found another company to do the trusses for less money, so that's good. I think that quote came back at 18,000. So that's a lot better than the 23,000 originally. Still higher than I want to pay, but it is what it is, right? So that's good. The truss guys will come out and measure that. That'll get started. They said about 4 weeks from now, including all that extra time. So if we get the walls up and stuff, then we'll be waiting on trusses. We can frame up and do the concrete pad inside, and then when we're setting the trusses, we'll be driving equipment on a fresh pad. That'll be a lot easier than in mud. And once the pad's down, then we're not dealing with mud once it starts raining and snowing and all that stuff. So that's kind of how I have things lined up in my head, how they'll work out. We also don't want to be pouring a giant, like 70 cubic yard concrete pad when it's cold outside. I don't want to risk it being too cold for it to cure properly. So I want to get that done in the next couple weeks. But yeah, this is the last weld of all this stuff. What are we, the 3 days on doing these now, Jesse? Between cutting them apart, redoing them, cutting it, that's pretty wild. All right, to the welding. So nothing's gonna get more comments than a bunch of guys telling other guys how bad they are at welding. I just know this from being around social media. So let's look at my welds. That way I get a whole bunch of comments on how I did it wrong and how much better everybody else is. What do you think? Will that hold up a building right there? What's funny is the welder's literally been going all day long, and then my very last weld, it started acting up. It like shut off twice.
What's that dark spot right there?
Where? That's where the welder shut off. Give me a break. These welds are a lot thicker than the ones I did before. I don't know why. Maybe the setting was different. You can see these up here, the ones that I already did before. They weren't easy to cut through, so I know they were strong, but I was going for heat and penetration. Make sure this thing does not fall down. All right, can't wait for tomorrow. Let's go home. Now it's time to water the foundation so it will grow. Now we gotta water the dirt out here that we just put in so it can settle, compact a little bit better. We're basically gonna water the entire thing, try and flood it, and then hopefully that'll help the dirt settle. Then we can grade it again. The dirt should be a lot more compact at that point, and then we'll have a better idea of how much gravel we can spread. And then, like I said, plumbing, gravel, and then pour. That's the next steps on this part. It's crazy how the water just finds a hole and decides to fill it up. Like, I imagine it's just going underground and then like spreading out to the left and to the right and front and back. Because the foundation is solid. There's no holes in the foundation here. So it's got to be just filling the dirt basically under where I'm standing right now. And that causes the soil to settle and move, which is exactly what we want, right? It's just wild. It would be nice to have, a month or two of rain to let this all settle out, but we don't have that kind of time. That whole piece is moving now, so the water must be flowing down that way. We're doing certain spots at a time because all the dirt isn't completely flat, so I dig out a little spot so it can create a crater, and then the water will flow to the lowest point and start to settle. I have a cool time lapse of that, so let's show that now. Jesse and I spent a bunch of time making these posts. These are the main posts, pillars, columns, whatever you want to call them, for the post frame side. We have a 4x6 with two 2x6s on the outside of it. And there's a few reasons for that. One, this was substantially cheaper than buying a 4x8. Also, I couldn't find 4x8s. No, sorry, 6x8s. 6x8. They were a lot harder to find than the 4x6. And they were substantially cheaper to do it this way. So we bought a whole bunch of glue. We laid glue between those two. You can see it seeping out. We laid glue between there, and then we put a bunch of screws in there so then the glue will set. And the idea is this side will sit in the ground, that's the bottom. And then the top up here, about 13 feet, roughly this mark, this 2x6 will get cut, and then the truss will sit on top of it up here. And so the weight will be pushing down that way. It will rest on top of this cut line on the truss. This 2x6 will be holding some of that. Obviously there'll be bolts to the top here that'll hold it. It'll also help them to sit level if we make those cuts the same. It'll just be a lot easier in general to construct it that way. So the glue line stops here, and everything above that is not glued or screwed. So when we cut here, this piece should be free floating just to fall off. Everything below it is secured and glued all the way down. So we ended up making 14 of those over the last few days, and they're all sitting here drying. The 4x6 piece was $65. Each one of these 2x6s was $18. So what is that? 660, 90, just over $100 for each one of those. So we're, let's say $1,500 in the columns, posts being built. The screws were about $40. We used $40 worth of screws for all those. And then the glue, I had to buy three tubs of glue at $25 each, so that's $75. I'm gonna round up and say we're $1,600 in columns. That's not terrible. My first build we were looking at $2,500, and that was for 20 footers. These are 16 footers. So that's the other reason why we built these wet set brackets, because that saves us 4 feet of wood going in there, which isn't that big of a deal, right? The 4 feet of wood, but the difference between buying a 16 footer and a 20 footer was like substantial, like significant cost to go to 20 footers. So I think this will be better. We've got 4 of these done. These are the ones that I messed up and had to modify, but they turned out just fine. And I have the satisfaction knowing that I built those to hold the building together. So can't put a price on satisfaction, right? You can see where it's been cut off and then re-welded, and so it's not centered anymore, right? It's off center, but that really shouldn't matter. We'll just offset the bracket when we set it in the concrete, and it should hold just fine. Next thing on the site here is these 3 boxes. The guys came by, they used the laser and set the tops of the boxes to grade height, well, below grade height, and so they're all level now. And then cut the tops of the boxes, because some of these were high. I think this one's like 1 inch low. So when we set the brackets, we're gonna have to use the laser to make sure the brackets are perfectly set. And then I had set all these. The one in the corner is set. So the next thing we gotta do is finish digging these holes out so we can set the boxes the same as the other ones. Get that height set, get those all put in there, backfilled. And then I want to put gravel on the bottom and compact the gravel so that they're strong and they should resist settling. So we got these 3 holes dug out. We got this box centered up right now, so he's gonna backfill it. He's like, hey, hold the box. And I was like, all right, I'll hold it from the inside. So we gotta put some dirt around it so it doesn't move. We'll start compacting the dirt. And then Jesus is on his way to go get some concrete. So we're gonna fill these today, wet set those wet brackets. We gotta backfill all these holes. And then as we're setting them, we'll level, we'll use the laser to level each one of the brackets. And then we can sit and watch concrete dry. All right, so Adam's Mini X here. Just kidding. We're back filling all these sonotubes so we can fill these up. We got those boxes all set. It's a Saturday. We got a pallet full of concrete and we're hand mixing it. We got a mixer which is taking forever, so we're doing some dry, some wet, just mixing it in the hole. Crazy. Jesus is like, what's manual labor worth? And I'm like, I don't know, I've never done it before. It's crazy how little concrete there is on an entire pallet. That was 3,100 pounds of concrete and it's filled like maybe 3 holes by the time we're done with it. It's wild. So, how do I flip this? I don't know how to use an iPhone. Jesse, how do you use an iPhone? What does that do? Is this even recording? So as you can see, we used a whole ton, well, more than a ton, but a lot of concrete, 2 pallets worth of concrete. We got 2 bags left over and that filled this hole, that hole, that hole, and that hole. And to be fair, this one was half full and these ones had some in the bottom already. So basically 1 pallet is about 1 yard of concrete. So we calculated about a half a yard for each of these, which I think is pretty on point. So that means we'll need another 2 pallets to fill all these, and hopefully less than a pallet to fill those sonotubes. These we ended up putting gravel in the bottom. Those other ones I poured extra concrete from when we did the foundation in the bottom of those. So these will have some gravel in the bottom. We'll probably take and put some like quote unquote aggregate in there to take up some space. But these on the other hand shouldn't take nearly as much material. I feel like these would be sufficient for the entire building, but the engineer called out big posts like that, so that's what we'll be doing. Look at that. Oh yeah. That's a good looking piece of concrete right there. Kind of moves over here. And this one's full depth. The other one's half depth. This one's, oh yeah. We're like 15 or 16 bags into this one, huh? 16 bags? That's crazy. Oh yeah, look at that. Those brackets are gonna go right to the bottom.
You want to set the first bracket?
This is our second pallet of concrete. We ordered a 3rd pallet for tomorrow. We got a lot of mud going down and hand mixing, hand lifting all these 80-pound bags, mixing. Man, it's a lot of work. So since that hole already has concrete in the bottom, we have to cut this down so that the rebar of these doesn't hit the dried concrete already. That sound. That's the good stuff. That's how you know we mixed it well, huh?
Quédate la línea, tu línea está bien.
Mucho cuidado.
Yeah, hold the other side, hold the other side. Oh.
Level, láser, laser, level, plumb. Y que mide ahí los diestros.
Watch out, Alton. Each one of them, when we get to a certain point, it's like they have to go in kind of hard. I think that's going to help them
set.
really set in there. They're not going in like super easy, which is probably a good thing. The fact that we're hammering them into something down there. I think the concrete down below. Oh.
Just powder.
Yeah, it's whatever it is, it's strong.
Quita más acá. Pero agárralo. Ahí.
So the string line falls. The string line like basically sets where we set the edge of the brackets. So if you look down the string line here, they're all
Es lo mismo, jalado, flash.
perfectly where they should be.
¿Sí entiendes?
Yes. Look at that. Bam! Straight walls.
Next.
Next.
¿Este está
This
muy
is the
grande?
one
¿Lo
we
vas a
don't,
cortar?
we don't have to cut it.
¿Seguro? Quédate al lado, pues, la
I'll
pega.
cut the long one.
Aquí.
So hold this piece. No more problems.
No, hombre. ¿Sí? ¿Cuándo vas a aprender los trucos?
He can't show all his tricks. Then he'll be out of a job. Blur it.
I have to blur everything I do out. No, así no mantenía patado.
No.
Fíjate la mano. Good.
Nice. There's one wall. That was a lot of work getting the concrete in there. That was a lot of bags. That was 2 full pallets. 2 full pallets of concrete bags, 80 pounds each.